Welcome to Municipal Affairs. Last week, Saskatchewan Finance Minister and Deputy Premier Jim Reiter unveiled the Saskatchewan 2025-2026 budget with a modest but noteworthy forecast surplus of $12 million. Now, it is a cautious yet significant achievement in a time marked by economic uncertainty as ongoing trade war with the United States and China continues to cast a shadow over the province's financial outlook.
However, we've been cautious on our expenditures in today's budget and prudent on revenues, put us in the best possible financial position to weather the impacts of any tariffs. In developing this budget, we did not allow the tariff threat to back us off on any of our election commitments on affordability and safer communities, or our commitment to deliver change by addressing the challenges of growth like crowded classrooms and access to healthcare. This budget delivers on those commitments. The 25-26 budget delivers for the people of Saskatchewan. The priorities in the budget reflect the priorities Saskatchewan residents told us were most important to them. Relief from cost of living pressures for everyone in Saskatchewan. Improved access to care for patients and healthcare professionals. Additional supports in the classrooms for students, parents, and teachers. Safer communities for residents in every part of Saskatchewan. And strong financial management. In this year's budget, our government is following through on our promise to ensure the province remains the most affordable place in Canada to live, work, raise a family, and start a business. The budget reduces income taxes for every resident, family, and small business in our province. It helps make life more affordable for seniors, families with children, persons with disabilities, caregivers, new graduates, first-time home buyers, and people renovating their homes. The taxation changes introduced in this budget provide more than $250 million in tax savings this year. This is in addition to the more than $2 billion in affordability measures in each and every budget.
Revenues are projected to hit $21.1 billion in Saskatchewan, a 6% jump from last year. Meanwhile, total expenses are expected to reach $21 billion, reflecting a $909 million increase from the 2024-2025 budget. Now, despite these rising costs, the government is touting the balanced budget and small surplus as a testament to strong financial management. As the spring sitting of the Legislature gets underway, running through April and into May, all eyes will now be on how the province navigates the affordability commitments while maintaining fiscal responsibility. But with economic headwinds blowing from the south of the border, can Saskatchewan continues to balance its books while supporting those who need it most? Premier Scott Moe said in a press conference on Budget Day that the budget was addressing what his party, the Saskatchewan Party, heard in the 2024 provincial campaign.
Last fall at the start of the session, the start of this 4-year electoral cycle. So this is a budget that delivers on priorities of all Saskatchewan people, Saskatchewan families and residents. And you'll see that play out in really 4 main budget themes that I have spoken to on a number of occasions. First, the effort to ensure that Saskatchewan remains the most affordable province in Canada today. With this budget, we are ensuring that that is the case for the years into the future. We're achieving this by reducing income taxes for every resident, for families, for small businesses that reside and operate in Saskatchewan. The second priority is better access to healthcare, to increase our access when it comes to healthcare. You're seeing a 6.4% increase in healthcare funding this year. That's building on an 8.3% increase in healthcare funding last year. Really significant increases to the largest portion of the provincial budget. We're working to ensure, as I said, that we are going to have the opportunity for every Saskatchewan resident to have access to a primary health care provider. Working to ensure that all Saskatchewan residents have timely access to surgery. And this is the investment that we are making in the Saskatchewan Health Authority, as well as other opportunities that we have to offer the services. We're seeing in this budget as well a significant investment commitment to our province's classrooms and thereby the students, the close to 200,000 students attending in those classrooms across Saskatchewan. $2.4 billion in operational funding that will be going to our school divisions so that they can operate the over 700 schools that we have. This is an 8.4% increase. This builds again on a 9% increase in education funding, in education operational funding last year. And we are going to continue to work alongside our school divisions to ensure that the result of this investment is improving K-3 outcomes. And that is the goal and focus of the government. It's the expectation that this funding is used for investing in specialized sport classrooms, for example, that are improving those outcomes for our children, students who are our children and grandchildren, in particular at the grade 3 level. And sectors quite aware of how opportunities for students are greatly improved in grades 4 through 12, and I dare say throughout life when they finish grade 3 and are at grade 3 academic level. So that's affordability, healthcare, education. Last, but certainly not least, is this government's continued commitment to making our communities safe for families, wherever you live in Saskatchewan. And it really can be summed up in 2 words: recovery and enforcement. At the very root of the challenges that we have in many, if not virtually all, Saskatchewan communities, and I would say Canadian and North American communities as well, is the poisonous drugs that we see coming into our communities, whether the crystal meth or fentanyl. And so we are building out as quickly as we are able our 500 recovery spaces and making those available to those unfortunately may have slipped into a life of addictions or needs some mental health supports at some point.
Leader of the official opposition, Carla Beck, said that the budget wasn't even worth the paper it was written on.
Sask Party's budget is not focused on the future. It's not even based in the reality of the serious challenges that Saskatchewan is facing today. This budget has no plans for our economy. This is a budget that pretends as if the last 3 months haven't even happened. In this budget, we see no measures to protect workers, producers, business, and industry from tariffs. And this is a budget that offers up only cuts when it comes to education, when it comes to healthcare. It seems that Scott Moe and the Sask Party are asleep at the wheel at a time when Saskatchewan people need them to be alert and responsive. Unfortunately, this budget will be very little comfort to all those families out there in this province right now who are worried about their jobs and their futures because of Donald Trump's tariffs. We've already seen Alberta, New Brunswick, British Columbia table budgets with tariff contingency funds to protect their people and their provinces. But this Sask Party budget offers no such help, only cuts to healthcare and to education. I mean, honestly, at a time when our healthcare workers are already operating like they're in a field hospital in a war zone, this government chooses to offer cuts for healthcare. It's quite a choice. In light of all that we're facing, people right across this province, the Sask Party cannot simply close their eyes and hope that all of our problems go away. In this budget, they had the chance to set our province up for a brighter future, to offer hope, to meet the challenges that Saskatchewan people are already facing. But instead, this is a budget that will take us backwards. This budget, in short, is an absolute work of fiction.
Now, as we are a municipal show, we caught up with stakeholders and politicians from across the aisle to talk to them about this budget. After the budget was tabled, we spoke with Government Relations Minister Eric Schmalz about what this budget means for municipalities.
Minister, Budget 2025 just tabled. Municipalities have been reacting over the last few minutes. I'm going to move in so they can see me instead of just half of me. Yeah. I got to start over. The Budget 2025 was just tabled, Minister. From a municipal standpoint, which is your portfolio, how did municipalities fare in this budget?
I think they fared quite well, actually. We've increased our municipal revenue sharing $25.1 million, $21.5 million, which is a 6% increase over last year's record-setting amount. So we've set another record again for the municipal revenue sharing program.
Now, some municipalities that I've spoken to today said that's good. but it's not far enough. Do you agree?
You know, I have to say that the municipal revenue sharing program is a unique program to Saskatchewan. It's
envy of the Canada, I should say.
Yeah, envy of the country, actually. Actually, we had we were most recently at SARM where I announced the increase to the municipal revenue sharing program, and I had a conversation with the delegates from the Manitoba Municipal Association, and they were blown away at this program and the amount of funding that the municipalities within this province received. They were quite envious and very vocal about that envy. Also, SARM and SARM and President of SUMA both echoed those comments and were very, very grateful and very, very excited to be in a province that has that type of program.
Over my last 2 years of doing this show, I've spoken to a few members of SUMA and SARM, and one of the big concerns that they raised was rural crime. Now, this budget addresses it by adding 100 new municipal police officers, 50 new sheriffs. Why was it important to address that rural crime in this budget?
Absolutely. I think people need to feel safe in their homes, need to feel safe in their community. We're seeing an uptick in crime, criminal activity across, not just in Saskatchewan, but across Western Canada and Canada moreover. So as a government, we need to respond and react to those instances and take swift action to address them.
Where do you go from here now? Because I know SUMA is coming up, but as Minister of Government Relations, you're going to be sitting down with member municipalities, trying to pitch them this budget. What's your first steps? So
we'll be reaching out to our SUMA partners. We have a good relationship, dialogue with them. We'll continue those conversations, stakeholder engagement at every level. I've got members from municipal councils in my office right now that I've had conversations with over the last couple of days. We're very excited about this budget. We're looking forward to working with stakeholders, taking suggestions on what we can do to help those municipalities. Always an open door with us, making sure that we have their voice in our ear when it comes to making decisions for municipalities in this province.
What's the one thing that municipalities need to see in this budget that might not get the fanfare that some other parts might?
We try to address absolutely every aspect of municipal need in a budget. Obviously, we can't. We have a defined amount of money to be able to spend on any number of issues in every municipality. We try to make that a measured approach with respect to how that money is divided up amongst the different ministries and different areas that affect each municipality. So we try to do our best to meet the need of the municipalities and stakeholders as well. So we're doing that every day, and we hope to continue that work long into the future.
My final question for you before I let you go, Minister. Are municipalities better off after this budget was tabled than they were before the budget?
I think they are. Absolutely. I think there's a lot of good things in here for the municipalities to be able to sink their teeth into and deliver real results for their ratepayers.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Gerald Clarke, the Saskatchewan NDP critic for government relations, echoed their leaders' comments in our one-on-one interview after the budget was tabled.
MLA Clarke, thank you so much for not sitting down, but standing up with me. Budget 2025 was just tabled in the Legislative Assembly. As the Saskatchewan NDP critic for municipal affairs, government relations, what did you hear?
A budget that misses the mark. This is not a budget that focuses on the future of Saskatchewan. In terms of municipalities, we're at a real critical point in our province right now around the potential for tariffs impacting Saskatchewan, but really small town Saskatchewan across this province. And there's no plan in this budget to deal with those tariffs. You look at some of the communities around the province who are, surrounded by canola crush facilities, different industrial manufacturing, agricultural manufacturing. Those will all be hurt by tariffs. There's nothing in this budget to say, hey, small town Saskatchewan municipalities, here's something to help us weather this storm.
You're the leader of the official opposition, Carl Beck, called this budget a basically fiction budget. How do municipalities work with this government when the leader of the official opposition is saying this budget is not worth the weight it's written on?
Well, mean, we've seen in lots of years over the past with this government where they put numbers on the page for the budget, and they end up in a very different place at the end of the year. In terms of the tariff threat that Saskatchewan is facing, there's a lot of unknowns. There are things the province can be doing within their power to help municipalities, to help families with affordability, to make sure that kids are getting the education they need, that making sure our hospitals and health centers are functioning. This budget doesn't do that. It misses the mark.
One area that municipalities have been talking to me when I sit down with them across Saskatchewan is rural crime.
Yep.
Rural crime. This budget does do a little bit for that. It does introduce 100 new municipal police officers and 50 new sheriffs. Does that go far enough in your perspective?
This is an issue that we've certainly been hearing as well across the province. People wanting government to be tough on crime, but also on the root causes of crime. The government's been spending millions of dollars on their marshal service. There's no boots on the ground yet. It's been years that they've been working toward this. We could have had RCMP boots on the ground in communities across the province, years ago. But here we are waiting more years before those boots and those folks are working on crime across the province. So is it good to see 100 more municipal officers? Absolutely. This should have been done years ago.
Final sort of question topic is about infrastructure funding. I recently just sat with the president of SARM and SUMA, and they both said that this budget fell a little bit short when it came to infrastructure funding. You, as the government relations, which means you deal with a lot of municipalities, are you hearing infrastructure concerns when you're sitting down and talking to them?
Absolutely. We continue to hear, I continue to hear from municipal leaders, both urban and rural, that they're being downloaded on responsibilities from the province constantly. Heard at the SARM convention just last week how 81% of bridges in Saskatchewan will need to be replaced or upgraded within the next 5 years. Where is that? Where is the funding in this budget to address those issues? These are major infrastructure problems. Municipalities need support from the province to complete these projects, to make sure that that people in southern Saskatchewan and northern Saskatchewan have the infrastructure there to make sure the economy is firing on all cylinders. And again, in a time when we're facing a lot of uncertainty around tariffs, those kind of infrastructure projects could be what spurs on economic growth in those communities. Again, we're not seeing that in this budget.
Final question for you. Are municipalities better off, in the Saskatchewan NDP's opinion, after this budget?
No, it's not focused. The budget is not focused on the future. It has no plan for the economy. We're seeing cuts in healthcare. We're seeing cuts in education. It's like the Sask Party and Scott Moe is asleep at the wheel. We are in a real dire situation with tariff threats from both the U.S. but also from China. This Sask Party budget failed to meet the moment, failed to show the leadership that we needed.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gerald.
Thank you.
Now, while the provincial parties were addressing the partisanship of this budget, we caught up with municipal leaders from across Saskatchewan to ask them for their reaction. SUMA President Randy Goulden spoke with us first.
Randy, thank you so much for doing this. Municipalities have been asking for infrastructure funding, have asking for more municipal revenue sharing. Does the budget 2025 deliver?
The budget 2025 delivers with increased funding for municipal revenue sharing, and we're very pleased. We want to acknowledge that. Our communities are absolutely critical to this funding. We know that we need that when we go into our budgets, because it's a portion of our budget. So we're pleased to partner with government again.
Does it go far enough, though? Because I know you and I have chatted, plus I've chatted with many of your member municipalities who talk about the dire need for more infrastructure money, whether it comes to sewers, wastewater, lagoons. This budget does increase a little bit, but does it go far?
Well, with the municipal revenue sharing, that's particularly state funding. We are continuing to work with governments, both municipal, and provincial, and federal on infrastructure funding. And we heard from the minister was a commitment to continue working with federal government to bring that into our province, because that has to happen in order for our communities to continue to be viable, but in order to provide quality of life for the residents and also to be an economic generator for this province.
100 new municipal police officers, 50 new Saskatchewan marshals. This budget seems to be priority community safety. Are you happy with this investment, or does it go far enough?
We've asked for more boots on the ground, and this indeed is putting more boots on the ground. So I guess the continued dialogue that we will have is, where are those boots going to be located? What are the responsibilities going to be? And will there be additional costs to municipalities?
What's the big key takeaway for municipalities this year?
Well, the key takeaway is we're very pleased with the municipal revenue sharing. There are a few concerns that we noted in the budget, and that there were no increases to 4 programs that we're concerned about. Because as you know, with inflation, when there is an increase, that means there's a decrease. So with the Saskatchewan Assessment Management Association, which is how we determine property tax, but it also is the determination for the education portion of how provincial government funds education. There was no increase. There was no increase to our connector system for urban highway connectors, which is absolutely critical with everything that is now hauled on our highways. So no increase there. And the CAP program, so the community airport partnerships, there was no increase. And what we're seeing, of course, is the increase in air traffic, both for tourism, but to transport and be part of any medical needs that are needed, and actually generate the economy that happens in our airports.
One of the things that you and I have chatted about a few times is around mental health and addictions. There is a focus on community safety in this budget. Do you believe that municipalities will be safer after this budget's passed?
It's something that we're going to continue to work on, because we've also seen an increase into mental health and addictions, into the funding for emergency shelters, and we need to continue to talk about that, because unfortunately that is not increasing. The need for that is increasing around what happens in our communities, because that's where our residents are struggling, and they come to our municipalities for help. And of course, if you look at our legislation, our municipalities in the province of Saskatchewan, healthcare, mental health and addictions, that's not part of what we do. But as our citizens that are suffering, we need to be a good part of that.
Last question, and it's about the municipal bylaw hub that was introduced in this budget. Now, I don't remember you and I ever chatting about this. I don't remember any municipality talking to me about this. Was this something that was SUMA advocating for, or?
SUMA has been advocating for this for about 2 years, because what we're seeing is the need. We know there's a need for bylaw enforcement, but there's also for prosecution. So when our residents who aren't complying, and many of them comply, but there's always some that don't, there need to be prosecutions around that. And sending that to the provincial court is an issue. There's cost, there's timing, the provincial courts are backed up. So SUMA has been advocating. And there was an example. We had a pilot around the Kindersley area, and we have been asking for the enhancement of that and the growth of that. So now we're going to have those courts in Foothills and Rossler, and we're very pleased about that. We have talked with the minister. He's basically said there wouldn't be direct cost to the municipality for hosting them. There may be cost, as there is now, to settle for the prosecution. But we're pleased, because if you issue a bylaw ticket to somebody, they can just not pay it. And it is very difficult to really enforce the prosecution. So we're pleased about having that. We're also pleased about they talk about safer communities. The increase in funding for our northern municipalities for roads and highways and airports in our northern communities. And we're pleased about that because there's a great deal of need that happens there. The highway system reports need to be improved, so we're happy to see some of that.
Okay, I know I said that was my final question, but you know me and my final questions, Randy. Are municipalities better off today than they were this morning before this budget was tabled?
Well, I would always like to say yes, we're better off. But is there improvements that we can have? Absolutely. We know that as days go by, we work really hard to improve the lives of our citizens, but there's not a benchmark where we're done because new things do happen. And I would suggest to you some of the new things that are happening is some of the relationships now that we have with our biggest neighbor to the south. And we don't know what's going to happen. That's so unpredictable. So we need to have our provincial and federal governments working with us on what might change. So municipalities will be better off tomorrow than they are today.
Saskatchewan Association of Rural Municipalities President Bill Huber was optimistic about the budget that was tabled.
President Huber, Saskatchewan Association of Rural Municipalities had their convention last week. Budget was a topic of much discussion. How did this budget deliver for the members of SARM?
Well, it's we didn't expect huge increases anywhere for our members. We know we're going through some of the most challenging times in many, many years. And, the Premier stated a couple of weeks ago that it's going to be a budget that we're going to have to really work hard on. And we don't know how much revenue we're going to lose or how the revenue stream or the expense side is going to affect us going forward with the certain threats of tariffs from the Chinese and the United States. So big concerns there. So no surprises really. We're pleased about several things.
One of the big things that I know you and I've chatted about a few times is rural crime, particularly when it comes to the wait times and the call times and the response times. This budget does talk about the 100 new municipal police officers, but also 50 new sheriffs. Is that good for SARM as a starting point to address the rural crime issues that your members have been talking about?
Yes, certainly it is. That's, our members a year ago passed on a convention, passed a resolution of 70% in favor of that resolution that we not oppose the marshals. So we've taken that as the direction to move forward and support the provincial government on that. And that's certainly good news. There's another $3 million allocated to the marshal service. We certainly need the RCMP. We're very supportive of them. But I think the marshal service is a great benefit to rural Saskatchewan, especially where they're going to be replacing a lot of those marshals in northern communities where there's some more heavier crime up there. So I think it's really good news.
What was the one area that you wish this budget would have addressed that they didn't get to?
Well, we're always looking for more money for infrastructure. That's a critical part.
Always are, Bill.
Yeah, there's never enough money to go around for infrastructure. So that, I guess, would have to be the one thing. But you know what? We didn't get a decrease either. We got another extra $1 million. And, we can work with that for the time being. And there's always an opportunity for them to bump it up too. So we look forward to meetings with the Minister of Highways in the future and throughout the year. And we're optimistic that we'll get our roads built.
Before I let you go, I have one final question for you. Is Saskatchewan's rural municipalities better off today than they were before this budget was tabled?
I think a wee bit, yeah. We had an excellent convention, probably the best turnout we've ever had. Even though we went through the tariff threats with China and the U.S. at the time of the convention, people were in a good mood. They were optimistic, and I think they want to support the Premier in this province. Not to get their elbows up, not to get their fists going, that we've got to resolve this with common sense approach. And maybe we'll win the battle eventually. It's hard to say, but the jury's still out on that, but we're very hopeful it works.
Bill, always a pleasure to sit down with you.
After the budget was tabled, we caught up with 3 mayors who were all in attendance during the speech. including Maple Creek Mayor Michelle McKenzie, Weyburn Mayor Jeff Richards, and Lloydminster Mayor Gerald Aalbers.
Mayor McKenzie, budget 2025 just was tabled in the Legislative Assembly. What did you hear from the great town of Maple Creek?
Well, when I was talking with my administrator just before we came out, and I was texting, one of the highlights, of course, is the municipal revenue sharing. You know, that looks great for us, and it's going to increase for the town of Maple Creek. So we're happy to see that. And when we were looking at the other thing is the marshals, you know, we're glad that to hear that's a year ahead of schedule, because again, down in our area, sometimes we our resources are pulled to go to the north, so we're a little bit short. The other good thing is the bylaw courts. You know, when we're looking at our communities and how we can enforce our bylaws and what we can do, sometimes our ratepayers are rolling their eyes and saying this, but at least this way here, the government heard SUMA and our members' voices when we were saying that what we need, and that was bylaw courts. So with those two being announced, that's exciting. So I'm hoping to see some future expansion on that coming down towards the southwest into those areas there. So again, it's exciting news.
Was there any downside to this budget from the municipal standpoint?
You know what? Listening to both sides, there's some, but I still need to be able to process that a little bit. You know, when we're looking at with education, healthcare, how those are going, you know, we've heard that they're focusing on protection, healthcare, and education, and of course the field that I work in healthcare. I would have liked to seen some different things that were coming out of there. I get the mental health and addictions is great, and having those wraparound supports and how that might look. But again, we still need to be able to focus on doctor recruitment and retention and how that looks like here in Saskatchewan, for my community. So talking to those doctors, just not getting them here into our communities, but what's going to take to keep them here. I would have really liked to see if there was a program or something that was coming forward on that situation.
One of the big things that this budget talks about is community safety. We talked about the 50 new marshals, 100 new municipal police officers. I was just recently at SARM. I'm going to be attending SUMA. Rural crime has been a major issue, and for your urban community, which is surrounded by a large area, rural crime is a major concern. Yes. Where can the province do better in helping municipalities tackle this issue? Because these 100 police officers, I'm going to take a wild guess and not say they're coming out to Maple Creek.
Well, I'm not going to say a negative about the 100 police officers. It is a positive step. However, where I think they need to focus on what is going on within the north. So if they were dedicating 100 officers to the north would be where they should go, which then keeps our officers in our community, right? Instead of pulling our resources to go to the north.
So what's next now?
What's next?
You take away from this budget back to the people of Maple Creek. What do you sell this budget to the people of Maple Creek, or is that your job, or do you work with your MLA to sell to the people of Maple Creek?
Well, from what I take back to the people of Maple Creek is because I'm doing my own budget. Right. So when we're looking at the revenue sharing and how that is increased, that also helps with us within my municipality not have to raise or increase any of those things. When we're looking at the educational tax and keeping it revenue neutral, again, that still puts a little bit of relief on my budget. So I'm not having to do any increases and looking at different things like that to make sure that what we're getting from assessment, because again, this is 2025 with a reassessment year. So of course it's already increased. So looking at how that helps my ratepayers, and they're seeing how they can help us then with the ratepayers. Working with my MLA is always a pleasure. Anything that is going through there, Doug, if I need support or if I need something to explain to, Doug is more than welcome to be there. If I was to take anything or say a negative that I didn't hear about this budget, would have been that there was no increase to SAMA. Right. So then, of course, when we're looking at SAMA, where that's coming back onto. So, of course, there is the pitfall shortfall of some of the stuff that they're doing still comes back onto municipalities, right? So not increasing in some of those support systems that are shared between the municipalities and the province. That's where I feel there's a little bit of disconnect and a little disappointed. However, I can work around with my budget, see that, and still advocate again to say, hey, we need to have a look at where you're not increasing these things at, because again, it falls back onto the municipalities to pick that up.
So final question before you go. Is Maple Creek better off today than before the budget was tabled?
Yes.
Excellent one-word answer. Thank you so much, Mayor.
Thank you.
Mayor Weyburn,
Yes.
how did this budget do fare for the municipality of Weyburn?
Well, overall, I think we're happy with it. I think there's an old saying, you and I've talked about it lots, a boring budget is most generally a pretty good budget. So this was very good. What we really focused on in Weyburn right now is a couple of things. Number one, let's get our hospital finished. You heard that mentioned, that funding continues. So we're excited for that. Number two always is that municipal revenue sharing piece. So a slight increase to that, but really when you math out that increase that the city of Weyburn will be getting, it's about equal to a 1.5% tax increase, like if we were to levy that. So it's a substantial amount of money, and we do a substantial amount of work with that money. So that part was very good. Continued investment on highways, 2039 highway, and also the new intersection of Highway 1339.
One of the big things that I think was sort of overshadowed because it was announced a few weeks ago was education portion of the property taxes being frozen for the next 2 years. Now you talk about the municipal revenue sharing. How important is it for municipalities to have that freeze and knowing that it's going to be in place for a few years?
Yeah, and it's more important, in fact, for our taxpayers, as they can budget, knowing that at least that part of their taxes aren't going to go up. We've had very open conversations with the people of Weyburn, particularly our commercial folks, saying there's going to be tax increases on the municipal side. So the province's ability to maintain that, to keep it revenue neutral, is huge for our community. Yeah.
One of the big concerns that was addressed in this budget was community safety.
Yeah.
100 new municipal police officers, 50 new marshals. I don't think you and I have ever chatted about safety concerns because I'm pretty sure Weyburn's a relatively safe community, but we do always have that petty theft. How important is it to see that increase in community policing, but also marshal system?
It's important to see the investment in public safety across the board. So for a city like Weyburn, policing is our single largest line item. Right. And that's not to say it shouldn't be, because it most likely should be.
Yeah.
But it's expensive. And where we get into trouble, new positions are excellent. We're happy to have that announcement also. But we've got to recruit these officers. And we have to get them into college. And then we have to get them on the street. And that's hard and it takes time. So what we were actually just as excited to see today was announcements about hiring more sheriffs. So can those sheriffs keep our guys on the street, keep them out of the courtroom? Keep them away from guard duty, because they're of little value when they're in a courtroom. Our guys need to be on the streets, not in there defending speeding tickets and parking tickets. But right, that's what we really want to see. So we're very happy with what government has done here, and also with the marshals.
Well, just on that note alone as well, the court system is getting a little bit of an overhaul as well when it comes to municipal bylaw concerns.
Yes.
So how important is it for Weyburn to see that hub potentially in a Weyburn community?
Yeah. Right now, our bylaw enforcement is done out of our municipal police service, and so it's working reasonably well. But what we do, but of course, as with everything, there's more and more and more of it. So we need there to be, and now there is, a conversation about that, which is so important.
Okay, so I've asked the positive questions. Yep. Let's go into the negative questions here for a second there, Jeff. What did this budget miss for the people of Weyburn?
Well, I don't know that it's missed yet. We haven't heard a lot of announcements about projects like the municipal interconnect program. We're hoping to see more dollars for that. That's when a highway passes through the city. So that's a jointly funded effort. We think, though, that might still be to come. We think that, there wasn't a lot missing, to be honest. It was a very stay-the-course budget. We were happy to see a balanced budget, because an unbalanced budget hurts our kids down the road, and we don't want to see them. So I think for us, we're overall, probably looking at an A or an A+ from this budget.
So then I guess that answers my final question for you here, Mayor, is Is Weyburn better off today than they were before this budget?
You bet.
Tabled.
Yes, we were. The people of Weyburn are better off today.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Okay, Chris. Thank you.
Thanks. Mayor Aalbers, budget 2025, the border city. You had Alberta's last month. You have Saskatchewan this month. How did the Saskatchewan side of your province fare in this budget?
Well, certainly we saw an increase in municipal revenue sharing, which is appreciated. That's the largest single grant we received from the government of Saskatchewan. And certainly it all helps to address the ongoing infrastructure challenges in our community on a day-to-day basis, from roads, water, sewer, policing, fire. Those are all challenges that we face each and every day, and we appreciate that increase.
Mayor Aalbers, the PST on vapor products will be taking effect on June 1st, 2025. And with that, the Lloydminster vapor products tax exemption will be removed as well. How does that impact your community?
Well, certainly it's going to impact the retailers a bit from that perspective. We pride ourselves about being a PST-free community for the interest of business. I'm sure we'll be hearing from local businesses. It's not the only item that PST is charged on in Saskatchewan. There's not many, but this will be another product that's added to that list. So Saskatchewan residents that buy a new vehicle pay that PST. If they buy a new home, they pay that PST, as well as any item that's insured and registered with SGI, as you can appreciate as a corporation. So another area that we were hoping to see exempted was our hotels in Saskatchewan, and we'll continue to work with the Minister of Finance, our local MLA, Cabinet Minister, and the government of Saskatchewan and economic development. Truly, it impedes that potential to be on a fair and equal playing field across our city as we try each and every day, as you know, to provide seamless services across one city, one community.
We are just hours after the budget was tabled, and one of the priorities in this budget was community safety. Community safety, community safety, community safety. Now, I know you are under the RCMP. I know there is a cost-sharing agreement with the province of Alberta around policing, but do you hear concerns about community safety in Lloydminster and the surrounding areas?
Absolutely, we do. We hear it from within our city. We hear it from our neighboring communities, certainly on the Saskatchewan side. One of the challenges is you have the Lloydminster detachment, which is a municipal detachment assigned to the city of Lloydminster. The nearest detachment on the Saskatchewan side is Maidstone, 35 miles. I can tell you that the people that live within the 6-mile Goulden ring around Lloydminster know that the criminals know that that's 33 miles or 31 miles to having an RCMP officer visit. So it's a huge challenge. Certainly the local RMs have tried to address that by adding resources to the RCMP dedicated specifically to their rural municipalities. It's an ongoing conversation. I'm going to be having that conversation with Minister Schmalz as the government relations minister, and again with Minister McLeod as the police minister responsible for policing, to see what we can do to ensure that better coverage, better use of resources, working together, and that a sharing of the bill.
Well, you are if I'm not mistaken, if you're still the chair, but you're the chair of the SUMA Cities Caucus as well, or the city's caucus in general.
Yep.
So, from a city's perspective, from across Saskatchewan, how did the cities fare in this budget?
Well, I think each of the cities saw an increase in municipal revenue sharing, and that plays a huge role. And I think they're very happy to see that increase in that municipal revenue sharing. Certainly, we heard about the PA hospital, not just the Prince Albert Hospital, but a hospital that serves of northern Saskatchewan, but based in Prince Albert. Certainly, we heard about other investments in healthcare in a number of communities, be it Regina, Saskatoon, Moose Jaw, North Battleford. Those are all welcome. The hospital in Weyburn, again, another member of the city mayor's caucus. So certainly the cities are looked at for that source of professional as well as health care, mental health and addiction. But what also comes with it, as we also know, is the challenges of homelessness, dealing with the mental health and addiction. So certainly it was good to see some increases in those areas. We'll continue as the city mayor's caucus and working with SUMA to advocate to the provincial government what we hear each and every day. Where they're meeting in the legislature 4 or 5 days of the week, we're out on the ground floor each and every day, seeing that in our community, which is so important.
Now, I asked you this question in Edmonton, but you weren't able to fully answer it. So hopefully now you are able to. Budget 2025 in Alberta, February 28th. Budget 2025 in Saskatchewan, March 19th. Is the city of Lloydminster better off after both these budgets were tabled?
Yes, we are. We moved the needle a little bit. There's certainly, if you ask me what our wish list was a lot longer than we received in either of the budgets, but in both cases we gained a little bit. And the challenge is that are we keeping up even with inflation? And that's an ongoing discussion in all levels of government, federal, provincial, and municipal. And certainly at the municipal level, maintaining 60% of the infrastructure on 6% is going to help, but it's not, is it enough? And that's the challenge that the provincial and federal governments are going to have to address after the election federally as to how we're going to continue to see our country grow, because without having that key water and sewer to look after every school that's built, every hospital that's built, every nursing home that's rebuilt or replaced and added, all require the basic services that they expect the municipality to provide. And if they do not have the funds, we're going to stall the economy. And no one wants to stall the economy. We know it drives wealth, it drives taxes, it draws employment. So all those factors are connected. And I hope that the provincial government, both Saskatchewan and Alberta, and all provincial governments across Canada recognize that fact, work together with their respective municipalities, and then bring the federal government together in a true three parties meeting to discuss what's best for this country.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Gerald.
One topic that was of much discussion during the budget was creating safer communities. Premier Moe stated in a press conference that his government was working to address and tackle the increase in crime across Saskatchewan when it came to fentanyl.
I feel that the investment that we are making of 500 police officers from various agencies very much is going to support every Saskatchewan community and every Saskatchewan family, regardless of where you live. When you look at how quickly the marshals can be deployed to anywhere in the province to support either an RCMP detachment or support a municipal detachment with 10 or 20 or 30 officers in a very short period of time. Presence equals prevention, and that's what the marshals are there to do, is to support every other law enforcement officer in this province and to have their back when they need it.
After the budget was tabled, we also caught up with Chief Constant of James Smith Cree Nation and Chief Longman of George Goulden First Nation to discuss how this budget will work with First Nations in addressing and tackling critical issues, including policing and addiction.
Kirby, thank you so much for doing this. Budget 2025 was just tabled in the Legislative Assembly. From your community's perspective, how did Budget 2025 deliver?
I really like the budget of the 23.8 million that the Sask Party earmarked for self-administered policing. I know it's a federal objective for them to help our nations, to help with policing on our reserves, and it's also going to showing that Saskatchewan's committed to keeping our community safe. So going forward, I think that's going to show initiative for not only this budget, but future budgets, saying that we want to keep our community safe.
Is there a concern right now that I just want to make sure, I was going to say Smith James, but the James Smith Cree Nation isn't safe, or is there a concern that it wasn't beforehand? Now that this budget has tabled it and this increase might make it safer, or are you just looking for more help?
I'm just looking for more help. Like, every community has its own challenges.
Yes.
Ours, we have our own unique challenges. We have a lot of mental health issues. We have a lot of addictions. A lot of people dealing with tragedy from still a couple of years ago. So it's still a lot on their mind of what, how we can better serve our members on the reserve, living on reserve, so they can feel safer going to bed at night. So I think the $24 million is going to be really effective going forward. And I'd like to see once it's rolled out of how the nations are able to access it and what they could be able to do with it.
What do you hope the next steps are? Because $3 million might sound like a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, a lot more work needs to be done. What are you hoping from the provincial and federal governments to address this issue?
It's a step.
Does it just come down to funding?
It's going to come down to funding. The way self-administered policing is. I know we're running a deficit with our program right now, so more funding would help, and more training, and so we can get our policies and our legislation and all that built up. Each nation's going to have their own policing, whether it's going to be a tribal council policing. It's all up to where the nation is. I know us, we're at the forefront of our policing, because we have a consultant working on our policies and our legislations going forward, we can bring that forward, and then we can start implementing our own training on our own policing on our reserve.
When do you hope to have that finished by?
We're hoping in the next 2 years. We do have some.
That's awesome.
We do have some of our members that are. We just put a call out there last month for some trainers, for some people to go start training up in Northern Ontario. So once we get those members out, they can come back and they'll be part of our force.
What do you do now? Because we're in this transition where the budget's been tabled, the money's going to be delivered. While we're talking about more funding is needed, where does the funding go first off?
I think to the frontline workers. It's also to help. I think majority of the communities need to build their capacity. They need to build their governance. They need to build their strategy on how they're going to do their self-administered policing. I know a lot of nations don't have that, and they're going to be looking to such as nations as ours as the forefront. And also there's other communities, not only ours in Saskatchewan, but you look at Satina that have their own tribal policing.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask you. That was the follow-up question is, First Nations are going to be looking at James Smith as sort of the beacon, as the what we should follow. Who are you looking at right now? What is the model you're following? Or are you sort of going off a wing and a prayer and hoping that this comes out well?
We have one of our consultants. His name is Rob Gillen, and he's worked on numerous communities and with self-administered policing. He did work on the Satina one. There's the one in Ontario, Southern Ontario, that they have their own policing force too. So he did work on that legislation down there for them. So we kind of got one of the industry's best, I would say, subject matter expert on working for us. So he's going to start implementing lessons learned from them and also lessons learned from other places to bring us the best practice we can bring to our nation.
Chief, thank you so much for this. Actually, before I let you go, one last question. What do you want people to know about this budget that we haven't talked about?
To step in the right direction. We got infrastructure coming. They earmarked some initiatives for such as missing and murdered Indigenous women, stuff like that. So it's showing our nations across Saskatchewan that they're committed to working with us.
Thank you so much for doing this. This budget talks a lot about community safety, policing. How does this budget affect your First Nations, your community, I should say?
I believe the George Gordon First Nation community needs an increase in policing. There's high numbers of overdoses over the last number of years. There's drug dealers in the community that, I believe should be easily caught. And for some reason, this has been an ongoing problem that we need to deal with. And I believe it's a crisis situation now to stop the drugs that are coming onto the communities and causing the horrible problems up there.
So what exactly are you looking for from this provincial government that wasn't addressed in this budget?
I believe we definitely need to have a better relationship with the provincial government as First Nation leaders, because when I was looking at all of the budget line items like health, that's a treaty right, education, that's a treaty right, social development, that's a treaty right. One of our treaty rights that is completely ignored is the exemption from taxation. And I think that the budget overall was good. I think there was some low areas where education, First Nation people have a treaty right to education. So I'd like to see every First Nation person eligible to attend university and be able to receive that funding to make that treaty right happen for them.
So I want to go back and talk about safety for a bit, because I know that's an important topic for yourself. Where does the budget fall short, and where does the budget give first steps in addressing the concerns that you've raised today?
So I believe where it falls short is we have on the reserve a community patrol. And these people have saved so many lives through narcanning band members that have been overdosing. They've been able to stop a lot of crimes by attending calls and emergency services. Every emergency that's taking place, the community patrol is there, and we don't have funding for them on the reserve. in the First Nation. So as a First Nation, we're continuing to operate that, but we're operating at a huge debt. But we want to, see some funding to assist us in that area, because the RCMP can't do it alone, and usually the people in the community can get there fast.
Is there a model that would benefit your community? Is there a model across Canada that you look at and say, if we had that here, it would be a lot better?
Well, I think the model that's probably going to benefit the best is to have our own on-reserve policing, but I believe that they've invested in marshals, I think they call them, and I think that's going to make a significant difference in the community, because we need just a greater force to deal with the drug problem that's taking place on the community.
You talk about the drug problem. There's big focus on fentanyl and crystal meth in this budget.
Yeah.
Is that what is ravaging your community, or is there other drugs as well?
It's crystal meth and fentanyl for sure, and of course it's the fentanyl that have caused all the overdoses in the past. So far this year, we've been relatively stable in that situation. We lost one bad number very recently within the last couple of days. But I mean, prior years, it's been like about 70 deaths, so it's really a state of emergency. It's a crisis situation, and we just really need to deal with it. I've approached ISC. I've met with the RDG and expressed all these concerns. And we just need some assistance on how to best deal with this issue, because we believe everybody out there has the training, everybody has the government departments, but it seems like there's a lack of communication between the chiefs and the leaders in the province and the leaders in the federal government.
Well, I want to mention that before I do let you go, but the federal government has a role to play as well in addressing this matter. What do you hope to hear? Because let's be honest, we're about to probably be in an election here within the next few days. What are you hoping to hear from your local candidates, but also the federal leaders, to help address this issue of rural crime in your First Nations?
Well, I believe we need to hear how we're going to fulfill these treaty contractual agreements, because they really are that. The treaties can't just be ignored by the federal government or the provincial government. The treaties are the key to First Nation people being able to receive the proper resources to be set free from the lack of education, from the lack of opportunity, like with work and with education and all of those things along those lines, even with health. One of our biggest issues on Gordon First Nation is health. I believe that on our First Nation alone, there's been so many amputated legs due to diabetes. That too is a crisis. So I'm hoping to see a lot more engagement, and I'm hoping to see a commitment to getting Canada back in line, I guess, and supporting the First Nation people as the original treaties were meant to do.
Chief, I want to thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Municipal Affairs. Now, we hope you've enjoyed today's conversations with the countless people that we spoke to at the Saskatchewan Budget 2025-2026 in Regina last week. Now, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the show here on YouTube if you're watching it here on any podcast platform. So head over and search Municipal Affairs or Cross Border Networks and find the show there, or any of our other shows, the Cross Border Interviews or the Political Trenches Local Government at Work. Or if you want, follow us on social media at Cross Border Network. To learn more about the people and the communities that we feature on this show and our sister shows, please visit us online at crossborderinterviews.ca. Your support means the world to us, so share this episode with your friends, your family, and yes, even your community, and help keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll be back with a brand new episode of Municipal Affairs soon.